Hello, this is Michelle, and I'm here to give you some tech tips. And today, what I'm going to show you is how you can use Google Forms to take attendance with a class that you're doing digital learning with. And some of you may have better ways that you can take attendance. It depends on what platform that you're using. There may be an attendance thing inside of that platform, but this is more for those who don't have a good way to take attendance. This somewhat automates it. You're still going to have to transfer it to whatever software you use that collects your attendance officially, whether that might be PowerSchool or whatever you use, but at least it has it all in one place, and at least it does it automatically. You're just going to have to transfer the actual attendance to somewhere else. Perhaps. Some things may be integrated with Google as well, but perhaps you'll have to transfer it to somewhere else. So we're going to start by going to Google Forms, and there are a couple of ways to do this. The way I usually do it is I simply type in forms.google.com and go to it this way. If you go to it this way, you'll be able to simply click the plus sign to start a blank form. So you could do it that way, but I'm going to back up and show you a different way that you could do it. If you use Google Drive and you're already on Google Drive, then you could also go to Google Forms or create a new Google form by clicking the new button and then do more and then go to Google Forms. And this is going to automatically put us in the same place that clicking blank form would have put us in the other window. So you can do it either one of those two ways. So to do this form, we're going to need to give it a name, and I'm just going to call it class attendance. Now, the interesting thing is that if I just click this area that says untitled form, it'll actually pop in that same name from there. So under form description, I can do anything I want to do. I'm just going to say this is a form to collect attendance for students who are learning remotely. Okay, so now all we need to do is add some questions, and it already has one question here for us. It's already giving us one question. So I want to just click here where it says untitled question, and I'm going to do the question. And probably one of the things you're going to want to know is, what is your first name? And I'm going to put these separate, the first name and the last name, because you may want to sort by first or last name instead of both. Now notice Google is really smart. When I say what is your first name, I don't know if you noticed at the time, but it changed this from whatever it was that I think was multiple choice. It changed it to short answer because Google knows, hey, if you're asking somebody what their name is, they're going to have to type it in, so it's probably going to be short answer. Then the next thing you need to do is to click this slider for required, because we want them to have to type their name in, so we want their name to be required. And that's all we need to do for the first question. For the second question, we could do it one of two ways. We could either click this little icon that says duplicate. It's like two pieces of paper. If we do that, it's going to do the exact same question. It already says short answer. It already has the question typed out. The only thing I want to change is that I want it to say what is your last name instead of what is your first name. And now we've got a good question. But let's just say we didn't do it that way, or your question is not almost the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the garbage can, the trash, for delete, and I'm going to take this question off, and we're going to redo the whole question again, because this time I'm going to show you a different way you could do it. You're just going to have to fill in all of the things again. Right here, there is a plus sign, and if I click this add question, then now I can type another question. So this time I'm going to type, what is your last name? Because we do want to have both. And notice it already changed it to short answer, because it knows if they're going to type in their name, it's going to have to be a short answer. And I do need to change this required slider. So those are the first two questions. If you are a self-contained classroom, This may be all you need to do is just what is your first name and what is your last name. Um, we probably want to add one more question. I know at least in our district there are several ways that they can show attendance, and one of the ways is just by showing up to the Zoom meeting. So in our case, it may be true that the only reason someone is filling in this form is if they could not get online for some reason today, they couldn't get into Zoom. So maybe they need to tell you why they couldn't. So I'm going to make a blank that just says comments or questions. And notice that again, it's smart, it changed to paragraphs. So now it's going to give them a long answer blank that they can type a long answer in. I'm not going to mark this one required. It irritates me when I go to a website and they have a comment block and they've marked it required, and I have to type something in there, but I really don't have any kind of comment I want to put in there. And usually it won't let you type a space either. So I end up usually typing a period or something that doesn't really show up that much, but it lets me type something. But we're not going to be that mean. We're not going to mark this one required. We're going to leave it so that they can answer it if they want to. But if they want to leave it blank, that's fine too, and they can leave it blank. So that's the third question. And like I say, if you're a self-contained classroom, this may be all you need is just those 3 questions. You can add other things if you want to, but you do them the same way. You would just add a question, and if it doesn't automatically pick the right thing, you have all of these questions you can pick from. Short answer is exactly like it sounds. It lets them type just so many characters, a few, I don't know how many characters, but it's a few characters. It's like where you're typing your name or something like that. Paragraph is going to let you type exactly what that sounds like. It's going to give you a longer blank that you can type in and you can say more. Multiple choice. If you do a multiple choice question, and I'm going to show you one in a minute, but if you do a multiple choice question, you're actually going to have to give choices that they can pick from. When it's multiple choice, they're only going to be able to pick one choice. If you want them to pick more than one, you actually need to call it check boxes, which looks basically the same, except it will have check boxes instead of what they call the little radio button right here. And if it's check boxes, they'll be able to check more than one. You can use a drop down, which this is exactly what this is that I'm using right now as a drop down. And that's what that would look like. You would still give choices and it would drop down. A file upload would let you be able to accept a file. They could go to that and submit a file to you. So you might even look at this as a way to submit assignments back to you. And we're not really going to look at these other things so much. However, date, if you wanted to include a date and you called it the date type answer, then it will pop up a calendar and they'll actually be able to choose a date. I'm sure you've done that on some websites before. But those are basically these answers. The reason I'm not asking for a date on here is because you're going to see in a few minutes that it automatically puts a timestamp, which gives us a date. So you can automatically see what day they're showing attendance for anyway. So this might be all you're going to do if you're doing a standalone class. However, I'm going to add one more question because I'm going to pretend that this is a middle school or high school. I'm just going to use middle school for this one. And I'm going to add one more question just so I only have to have one form for all of my students. Let's say I teach 6 classes all day long and I only want to have one form for all of my students. So I'm going to grab these. Let me actually highlight the mouse so you can see. I'm going to grab those little 6 dots that, think of those little dots as like a handle. So I'm going to grab those little 6 dots by clicking and holding down with the mouse. And when I do, then I can move this up because I want my comments to be the last question. But this question is going to be, what grade are you in? I'm going to pretend this is one like for our middle school. And so I'm going to leave it multiple choice, and our middle school has 7th and 8th grade. So I'm going to make one option be 7th grade. And I'm going to click where it says add option, and I'm going to make another option be 8th grade. Notice that I'm doing them in the right order, but if you did get them out of order, they have the dots over here. You could also drag your answers around. And if I am a middle school teacher, I do want them to have to answer this and tell me what grade they're in. So I'm going to mark this one as required as well. And then you could even add another question that says something like, which class are you in? And we might call this hour 1. I don't know what you do in yours, but hour 2, or you might call it by the class names. You might call it pre-algebra, geometry, algebra 1. I'm just going to stop at hour 4, but you see what I'm doing here. And if I had a reason to ask this, I probably would want it to be required. So basically, this is our form we just created. Just remember that if you are a lower grade that's self-contained, you probably don't necessarily want these other 2 questions. They're just something extra for the students or their parents to have to answer. So you probably don't want those if you're self-contained. And remember, if you've already typed something in that you don't want, you can simply do the garbage can to erase it, or you can just go back and edit anything that you have there if you only want to edit it. But this basically is our form. I'm going to look at settings, because if we use the form like it was, well, first of all, I'm not going to collect email addresses because I am asking them for their name, and if I collect email addresses, it may make them have to have a Google account. Limit to 1 response will also make them have to have a Google account. I know that. It actually tells you that. And I'm afraid that some of the students and even their parents might not have a Google account. So I don't want to do that because I don't want to limit the ones who can submit it. And here's the thing. If they submit attendance twice for today, by the time I filter and order my responses, like you're going to see in a few minutes, it won't really matter because those 2 responses, or 3 or 4, whatever, they're going to be right next to each other. And it's going to be really easy for me to figure out this person submitted 3 times today, and I could just delete 2 of them or whatever. I don't want them to be able to edit after they submit it. I just want attendance, and I don't have any reason that they need to be able to see summary charts or anything like that. Look under presentation. There's really no reason to show a progress bar to them, or there's no reason to shuffle the questions. I want them to stay in the same order. And I don't need to show them a link to submit another response, just because I really only want them to submit 1 response a day. I just said a minute ago, it doesn't really hurt if they submit more than 1. I can fix that easily, but I don't want them to submit more than 1. So I'm not going to show another link. And then the confirmation message, this is what they see once they submit the form. And I'm just going to say, thank you for submitting attendance. Please return on any day that you need to submit attendance again. And I'm going to show you quizzes. There's nothing for us to do, but there is a way that you can use these Google Forms to make auto grading quizzes. And I can come back and do another video that shows you how to do that later. But for now, we don't need that. So I'm just going to click save. And then the other thing I want to show you before we move on is, if you look at this that looks like an art palette, a painting palette, and click it, it lets you choose a theme. So I could just choose colors and change the colors. Or I could choose an image, in which case I could go and upload the image from my own computer of an image I have that I have rights to use. Or I could pick a theme they already have. I'm just going to pick the sciencey theme to show you what it looks like. I'm going to pretend that I teach science. Now, here's the thing. When I pick that theme, it automatically changed the background colors. And just as a clue, if I were having students come to the form on Google, they would actually see this theme. I'm just showing you how it works, but the way I'm going to use it, they're not going to see that theme anyway. They're really only going to see the colors. So I'm going to go and change the color to something that matches my website better. It still matches that theme too, but it matches my website better. Which background? I think I like maybe that background. And then you could change the fonts. There are only 4 fonts you can pick from, and I don't really care for them that much. Maybe this last one, I might leave it on that. But anyway, this is how you change the theme. And so now we have a form that's ready to use. What we could do is simply get the link for this form by going here, and we could even shorten it so it's a shorter URL. And if I click this copy button, I have this link copied, and I could just go send that out in email to my students or parents or whatever. But what I really want to do, in our district, we are doing websites on Blackboard, and I really want to just make this Google form be part of my Blackboard website so they don't have to click through and go anywhere else. They can just stay right on the website. So instead of doing that, I'm going to click this part that looks like a less than and greater than sign, and it's telling me that there's code here. And I'm actually going to copy this code. Now, if you've watched my other video about how to use Google Forms to post assignments, you saw us using this code already, and you know that we don't have to know what this code means. All we have to do is copy it, and there's going to be a place where we can go and use this code. So I'm going to go to my Blackboard website now, and this is where I edit my website, and I'm looking for the app that says Embed Code. Now, if you're using something besides Blackboard, it may have something different, but it should sound similar to Embed Code. That's exactly what we're trying to do. So I'm going to drag this app over and put it into Blackboard. And I'm going to call it something like maybe class attendance. When I hit enter, this actually does nothing so far. It just names it, but it doesn't do anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to immediately, when I click edit, the pencil edit, I'm going to immediately go to options before I forget it. And I'm going to check this option that says show the app name on my page. And I'm going to click save. And what that does is it makes it show this name in a nice little separator bar. So let me reload this page. And now you see that it says class attendance in that nice little separator bar. If I had not checked that box, that would not be showing. The bar wouldn't be there, or the words would not be there either. It would not do anything. So you can't just name the app. You also have to check the box that says show the name on the app. So the next thing I want to do is, if you're not already in it, you would need to click the edit pencil, but I'm already in it. And remember, from here, I had already copied this code. So now all I want to do is paste, which you can either do by holding down the control button and hitting V, or you can right click with your mouse and then left click on paste. Either way gets that code in the box. And then I need to click save. And it is this easy. Now when I go back to my actual page and I reload the page, by the way, you can reload your page by holding down control and clicking F5, not F and 5, but the button at the very top that is F5. And now I'm showing my attendance form right here on my web page on Blackboard. It looks like it's just part of my web page, and it really is. It's called embedding, and I have embedded it into my web page, so it's just there on the page. So I'm going to go put a few responses in just so we see some responses. And since I said I was teaching a science class, I'm going to assume these students are all going to grow up to be doctors. So I'm just going to put in a few names. And I'm going to just choose randomly what grade or what class they're in. I'm not going to put any comments because remember, it was not required. I don't have to. Now, remember we said we're not going to put a link to submit again because we don't want them to. In my case, I'm just wanting to submit a few so you can see the results of what it looks like. So I'm just going to reload the page and it will pop up again to let me submit again. So I'm going to continue just submitting a few names. Okay, now that I have a few names, I'm going to go back to my form. And notice we were in the part called questions. Now I want to go to the part called responses. And notice, even though I haven't reloaded the page, it automatically tells me that I have 6 responses for today. When I click on responses, I get a summary of all the responses. I can see that it tells me I have 6 responses. It gives me their first name. It actually gives me the answer to all the questions. And the reason it has it as a graph is because of the 2 Dr. Karevs. So I had one answer that had 2 of the exact same thing. So it started giving it to me as a graph. If they had all been different things, it would have done it the other way. It tells me I have 50% in 7th grade and 50% in 8th grade for today. All of these things might or might not be useful, but at a glance, you could see your attendance for the day. And like I said, when you don't have 2 people with the same last name, it would actually list this in the same way it does up here. So you could simply do your attendance from here. But if you have 150 kids because you teach middle school or high school, it might not be feasible to do your attendance from here. So here's another way we can do this. If you look at the little green icon that looks like it has a cross in it, but that's really just showing you that they have columns and rows, that's the symbol for Excel. And we're going to click this and make an Excel spreadsheet to take these answers. We're wanting to create a new spreadsheet, and I can leave it exactly what it says, class attendance responses. So I'm going to create that new spreadsheet, and it's going to take me to a Google Sheet that looks like Excel. Remember, I told you that it gives us the timestamp, so we have the timestamp. We have the timestamp, and then it has each column for each question. What is your first name? What is your last name? What grade are you in? What class are you in? And if anybody had typed comments or questions, they would be here. So we can see them all in a spreadsheet. But again, if you had 150 kids in one day and they all use this attendance, it's going to get pretty confusing, especially when you're trying to figure out, well, which kid is in hour one? Because right now, I'm just going to be doing attendance for hour one because it's in one place in, say, Power School. And how do I get just those students? So here's how you do that. You can go to this button that says create a filter, and I'm going to create a new filter view. And I can pick any of these columns when I do it. So first of all, I want to filter to just today. Let's pretend that we have attendance from several days. So I want to filter by just today. And if I only type in, notice this has a time, but I found out that if I only type in the date and I don't type the time, it does show me all of this date. So if I had attendance from 9/2 on here as well, now you would not be seeing 9/2. But I want to add another filter. I want to add a filter by what class are you in. So I can still click the filter button, and I'm going to uncheck all of these, and I only want to see the students that are in the hour one class. So when I click OK, I only have one student that was in the hour one, but it filters down and shows me just that one student. If you had 25 students in that class, it would show you all of those students. Now, once you're in this view, you may say, oh, but what if I want to go back and see all of the students? All you do is go back to your filter button and you choose none. And it takes the filters off. So the only other thing is at the end of each day, you may want to clean up this part so that tomorrow when students do attendance, you can see only the students that did today. And it's really easy to do that. You just go to the three dots and you choose delete all responses. That sounds scary, but don't worry about it. Watch what it says. It asks you, are you sure you want to delete all of these? This action cannot be undone, but the last sentence says, responses already sent to a spreadsheet will not be deleted. So I'm going to say okay, and notice in my form it tells me I have 0 responses, so I'm ready for the next day. But if I go back to the spreadsheet, even if I reload the page, in the spreadsheet, I still have all the responses. It did not delete the responses off the spreadsheet. So tomorrow, when students start checking in for 9/4/2020, I now will be able to see all of them. And remember, I can go back and use my filter button, and I can filter just the ones for 9/4 so that I can see those over here. Or back on the form, remember that once they start adding responses again, I'll be able to see those responses from 9/4 again. So there is exactly how to use a Google form to do attendance with your class that may be learning remotely.